So these are notes for Learning Target 8. So we're going to start, and if you looked at this last tab right here, see how it said 4 terms? Okay, what do you see on this sheet? 4 terms. And most people think, oh my gosh, 4 terms, it's going to get even crazier. I can barely do it when there's 3. 4 terms is actually, I will tell you, the easiest of all ways of factoring. So I really think that you'll think that. So first thing we're going to do when we have 4 terms is look for a GCF all the time, right? Whether it's 4 terms or 3 terms or 2 terms. 9, 15, 6, well, except for that 10. They all had a 3 in common, right? But 10 doesn't have a 3, so I can't pull a GCF out of this one. So we're going to start by grouping. I want you to underline this word grouping in your notes. See how it says factoring by grouping? Another way to say factoring by grouping is 4 terms. So the only time you're ever going to group them together, like I just did, is when there are 4 terms. So factor by grouping means there's 4 terms. So you know what I want to do? I want to make them, instead of 4 terms, I want to make it 2 sets of 2. So I have these 2 grouped together and these 2 grouped together. The other important thing is that if you'll notice, I was so nice to make sure every problem I gave you is already in standard form. 3, 2, 1, none. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1, none. If you ever encounter a problem that's not in standard form, then before you can factor by grouping, you have to put it in standard form. Okay? So I want you to put the word standard form up here. Okay? So make sure all your problems are in standard form. I did that for you. So I group my first 2 terms together, and I group my last 2 terms together. And then I find the GCF of each set. So for right now, I'm going to pretend like that 6x plus 10 isn't even there. What's the GCF of 9x cubed and 15x squared? 3 and what? X squared. So watch what we do. We pull that 3x squared out, and then we put what's left in the parentheses, right? Which is just 3x squared, which is a 3 and an x. And 3x times what is 15x squared? 5. Okay? Good so far, right? Then the next thing I do is take this sign that was left in the middle and bring it down. Good luck.
Could you release the 7th and 8th grade softball team and 8th grade baseball?
Watch the notes tonight. Online. Okay. So then what's the GCF of 6x and 10? 2. So I'm going to put a 2 here. And what's left after I pull that out? A 3x and 2 times what is 10? 5. Okay, so stop there. Does anybody notice anything?
The 3x plus 5 is...
Yes. So if you have a highlighter, it might be helpful. I see 2 3x plus 5s. So what I want to do is do another round of GCF. Is this a factor that this whole expression has in common? So pull that out. Pull out the 3x plus 5. Thank you. And then, do you see what's left over? I call them the leftovers. I see a 3x squared and a plus 2. So what do you think your other factor is? That's it. That's your answer.
Yeah, I know, I missed sections.
There's nothing to miss. It's that easy. So did you see that you had 3x plus 5 and 3x plus 5 was pulled out? Do you see what's left? 3x squared plus 2? That is literally all you do. That's all you do to factor by grouping. That's the basic part of it. We're going to add a couple more steps to it, but that's really it. So if I take this 3x squared plus 2 and double distribute it out, what do you think I'll get? That. Okay? Let's do another one. That's it. That's really all there is to it. So I want you to put, the key is, there's putting the parentheses around the 2 terms. X there a party going on? Factor out. So let's put ourselves a little bit, so group the first two terms and the last two terms together. That's what I did first. That's me writing in the parentheses. Find the GCF of each parenthesis. Let's do that right now. So what is the GCF of 2r cubed and 14r squared? I don't want any negatives. A 2r squared, right? So what's left? An r minus 7, right? So as I look at my second set of parentheses, there is no GCF. It's just r minus 7. And by the way, isn't that r minus 7 what I need it to be with matching with this one? So what do you think I want to multiply this r minus 7 by if I don't want to change it? 1. So here's your hint. When you are done doing the GCF of both, you better have two parentheses that are identical. If you don't, then you did something wrong. So now what I want to do is take out the common factor that I see here, which is an r minus 7, and then what are the leftovers? Do you see why it's important to put that plus 1? Because you may look at it and go, okay, 2r squared. What else? Oh, 2r squared plus the 1. And you only do the plus 1 when you don't want to change it. See how it's already what I needed it to be? So that's why I have my 2r plus 1. I really think that the color coding, yes, 2r squared, sorry. Thank you. Okay, does that color coding help you see it? So GCF, pull that out, and that's one parenthesis, and what's left over is the other. Okay? That's the basic movement. So then when we get to number 3, watch what happens when we pair these off. Do you see a GCF? 7, 7, 7. No. So is there a GCF in here? No. You always got to check for that first. So what do you notice is different about this set? There's a minus instead of a plus, which tweaks it one little bit. So let's go ahead and pull the GCF of our first set of parentheses out. It's a 7r squared, right? So what's left in there? A 7r minus 6. Okay, remember what I said. Whatever sign's in the middle just comes right down. What does a 28r and a 24 have in common? 4. Now, in the back of your mind, stop, because what you're thinking is, okay, I know in order for this problem to work, I need this parenthesis to be a 7r minus 6. But you never, ever, ever want to just write it. You know what I mean? Because maybe you did this one wrong. That happened when we were taking notes last hour. And if you just write 7r minus 6, you're just, you're setting yourself up for possibly making a mistake. So you're going to double check it. So be careful, because that little negative screws just one thing up. If I need a positive 28, what do I multiply this by? 7r, right? I don't just bring this plus sign down. Because I need a positive 24, I have a negative 4. What do I multiply a negative 4 by to get a positive 24? Negative 6, right? And by the way, doesn't it have to match that anyway? So when this is a minus in between, the only thing you have to remember to do differently is that whatever that is, it's going to be the opposite because you pulled that negative out. Do you know what I mean? So your answer for this is going to be your common factor of 7r minus 6. And then your 7r squared minus 4. And you can see where they come from, right? All right. You want to try number 4 on your own? Go ahead. See what you get. There's no GCF. Okay. And again, you know it's going to be an 8v plus 5, but you don't ever want to do it. You really just want to be careful. So 5 times what is 40? And negative 5 times what is going to be a negative 25? Positive 5. And then you have your 8v plus 5 times your 4v squared minus 5. Got it? Okay, is that what you got? Okay. So now we move on to number 5. And this time, it looks like there is a GCF, right? I can pull a 3 out of here, and here, and here, and here. So now level 2, the first 2 were just all easy pluses. The second 2 had a little twist with that minus. The next 2 are going to have a little twist because you have to pull the GCF out. So let's pull that 3 out. Okay, and you know after you pull a 3 out, or the GCF, you have to write what's left in it. So we're going to have a 2v cubed, and I can't pull a v, right, because that one doesn't have any v. And then I'm going to have a 5v squared, a negative 10v, and a negative 25. Okay, now this is where it gets a little tricky, because after you're done with the GCF, the problem is just like any other problem. You just do the problem. That's where you have to say, okay, which one is it? Obviously, if it has 4 terms, it's the grouping one. So my next thing is to group the parentheses together, but there's already a set of parentheses, and that 3 is kind of in the way. So here's what we're going to do. Just go ahead, use your grouping symbols, or just ignore the parentheses. It's helpful to have them in another color. And now, that 3 is kind of in the way for when I pull my first GCF out, isn't it? So you know what I'm going to do so I don't forget it later? I'm just going to kind of bring it down here and put it like that so I don't forget it. Because every time you forget it, it's a point off, right? So then I just go and do the problem as normal, and I pretend like that 3 is not there. So the GCF of this and this is v squared, and that leaves me with a 2v plus 5. Good so far? This minus comes down, and I'm pulling that 5 out, that negative 5 out. And I know it better match a 2v plus 5, but I'm just going to double check. Negative 5 times 2v is 10v. And negative 5 times what will give you a negative 25 plus. So that works out. So now I'm ready to go and fill in my answer. So I have my common factor of 2v plus 5, a v squared minus 5, and it was already set up real nice with my 3 there, and that's my answer. Okay? Understand that one? You want to try 6 on your own now? We'll do one together, one on your own. So go ahead and pull that GCF out first. Look over to this left problem if you need to. Just look up when you need to. Okay, so are you good to this point? You realize that the 2n minus 5 is already what you need it to be. So you want to multiply that by what? To not change anything. Right? Good? Is that what you got? So we have one more to do. Okay. Last one. We good? So you're with me so far, right? I mean, it's not too bad. All right. So let's start with this. Let's pull a GCF of 5 out. Good so far? Okay. So now I kind of want to leave this 5 down here. I don't want to forget about it. I want to pull out an x squared, and that's going to leave me with x plus 8. Okay, this one's a little tricky because it's an x minus 8, but I need it to be an x plus 8. Well, that makes sense because that is what? When this minus is here, if that needs to match this, doesn't it make sense that that's an x plus 8? Because negative x, negative times positive is negative, negative times that's negative, okay? Yeah, so that works out. I just talked myself in a circle there. Okay, but this has to be a 1 because I didn't want it to be an x minus 8. I needed it to be an x plus 8. Do you see what I did here? It was already what I needed it to be, so I just wanted to multiply it by a 1 and keep it. It was almost what I needed it to be, so I had to multiply it by that negative 1. Now watch. This is what sets number 7 and 8 apart. This is going to give me my x plus 8 and my x squared minus 1. Now, I've been telling you this whole time, be a detective. Look for something that can be factored further. Is that a perfect square? Yes. Is that a perfect square? Yes. So, this is fine. This is fine. But that is a special case that I got by multiplying an x plus 1 times an x minus 1. Right? I know. Okay? Watch. If it's like having this. If I were to have a 3 times a 4x plus 10 and a 36x squared minus 9, is that a perfect square? Just relax. Listen. Is that a perfect square? Yes. Is that a perfect square? Yes. Is that a minus? So remember those special cases? I still feel like of all of these, the special cases are the ones that are confusing you the most. So this is good. That doesn't qualify for anything. But how did I get that? By multiplying a 6x plus 3, 6x minus 3. Listen, if they're square numbers, then they were squared, right? And the opposite of squaring something is taking the square root. So what times what gave me 36x squared? 6x times 6x, right? What times what gave me 9? 3 times 3. And how did I know to make one of each sign? Because it's a negative 9.
We have to put down.
Absolutely. If you don't, it's going to be wrong because it's not factored completely. The directions on the worksheet say factor completely. Let's do another one. So let's just work through this together. All right? If I factor out a 4 from this, okay, you're going to have 16r to the third plus 20r squared minus 4r minus 5. Okay? So stop me if we get to a point where you're not with me. Are you okay with that? All right. Next, group those. Okay. I need to make sure this is the right. So this 4 is going to come down here. I'm going to pull out a 4 from here and an r squared. What's left? A 4r plus 5, right? Okay. Is everybody okay with how I got 4r plus 5? I guess I should stop there too. Okay. I need a 4r plus 5, but I'm showing a 4r minus 5. There is no GCF to pull out, but I want the opposite of that. So I'm going to keep that negative and make this a 4r plus 5. Because look, that times that and that times that is the negative 5. So this is really a negative 1. Yeah. Okay, so watch what happens. I go to write maybe I need to use my highlighters again. Maybe we're getting confused. Isn't this parenthesis just for that? So what's the common factor? 4r plus 5. What's the leftover? That, and doesn't that go here? Right? But look closer at 4r squared minus 1. Is that a perfect square? Is that a perfect square? And is that a minus? Yes. So this goes back to last week when we had just this problem all by its lonesome. Now it's part of the next problem. So my answer is going to be these two stay, but that, and do you remember me saying if there's two terms that are perfect squares, then that's the 2 one? So you have a 2r plus 1 and a 2r minus 1. All right? So I feel like the best thing for you to do is get some practice with this. Now listen, here's your hint. There's 8 problems on the front, 8 problems on the back. On each side, there's 3 problems that are going to do that, meaning one of the parentheses will need to go even further. So of the 8, there's 3 on here and 3 on here. So be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for perfect squares or the difference of 2 squares, okay?